New York City had always been a dream for me, a place of endless possibilities and vibrant energy. When I finally landed a job in the city, I was overjoyed and moved into a cozy Manhattan apartment. The building, though old, had a certain charm to it, nestled on a quiet street, a welcome respite from the city's hustle and bustle. The landlord, Mr. Simmons, seemed pleasant enough and assured me I'd feel right at home. Strange occurrences began. Soft whispers, indistinct voices that drifted through the walls. I initially brushed them off, thinking they were just the neighbors' conversations seeping through the old building. But the voices grew louder and more persistent, and I couldn't make out any words. They were like a haunting chorus that echoed through the night. Sleep became elusive as the whispers continued, and I grew paranoid. I'd wake in the middle of the night, convinced someone was in the room with me, lurking in the shadows. But when I turned on the lights, the room would be empty. One night I heard soft footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom. My heart raced as the doorknob turned slowly. I flung open the door but found no one. The hallway was empty and the building was silent. I reached out to Mr. Simmons about the building's history, but his response was vague. He attributed the strange occurrences to old peepees and the building settling. But I saw unease in his eyes. A flicker of something he wasn't saying. Desperate for answers, I researched the building's history. It didn't take long to uncover a dark past. My apartment had been the site of a mysterious disappearance decades ago. A young woman named Amelia vanished without a trace, her story becoming a local legend. The strange occurrences intensified as I delved into Amelia's story. Objects moved on their own, and the whispers grew louder. One night, the whispers coalesced into a distinct voice, a mournful cry for help. "Find me," it pleaded. I embarked on a quest to uncover the truth behind Amelia's disappearance. I combed through old newspapers, interviewed elderly neighbors, and consulted a historian. The more I uncovered, the darker the story became. Amelia had stumbled upon a network of corruption and crime, and in retaliation, they silenced her permanently. After months of research, I went to the authorities and the truth was revealed. The guilty parties were brought to justice and Amelia's spirit could finally rest. My time in New York City had become a descent into a nightmarish world, a city of dreams and secrets, where the past and present intertwined in disturbing ways. Though my apartment had been haunted by Amelia's relentless presence, it had also forced me to confront a chilling truth. As I left that old building for the last time, I couldn't shake the feeling that the city held countless more untold horrors and hidden malevolence, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to ensnare the unwary souls who dared to tread its shadowy paths.
Living in New York City can be a thrilling experience, but it can also be a nightmare. I found that out the hard way when I moved into a small apartment in a nondescript building on the Lower East Side. At first, it was everything I had dreamed of: bustling streets, vibrant culture, and the sense that anything was possible. But soon I realized that something sinister lurked in the shadows of my new life. It all started innocently enough. Late one night, as I was preparing to go to bed, I heard a soft tapping on my window. I lived on the 6th floor, so it couldn't have been a passerby. I cautiously approached the window and peered outside. The street below was empty, shrouded in darkness. I dismissed it as a figment of my imagination and closed the curtains, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over me. But the tapping continued, night after night. Each time I would investigate, but I never found anything outside my window. It was as though someone was playing a cruel prank on me. As the weeks went by, the tapping escalated into something more disturbing. I started receiving anonymous letters slipped under my door. They were filled with cryptic messages and strange drawings. I couldn't make sense of them, but their intent was clear. They were meant to frighten me. I contacted the police, but without concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. They suggested installing security cameras, which I did, hoping to catch a glimpse of the stalker who was tormenting me. The nights grew longer, and my sleep grew more restless. I would often wake to the feeling of being watched, a sensation that sent shivers down my spine. The letters continued, each one more menacing than the last. They hinted at a deep obsession, an intimate knowledge of my life. I became paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder as I walked the city streets. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following me, that I was never truly alone. Friends and co-workers noticed my growing unease, but I couldn't bring myself to confide in them. Who would believe such a bizarre and terrifying story? One particularly dark night, as I lay in bed, I heard a voice, soft and sinister, coming from the other side of my bedroom door. It was a whisper, a twisted declaration of love and possession. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I told them I believed there was an intruder in my apartment. Within minutes, the police arrived, guns drawn. They searched every inch of my apartment but found no one. There were no signs of forced entry, no trace of the stalker who had been terrorizing me for months. I felt like I was losing my mind. The police officers were sympathetic, but they couldn't offer any solutions. They suggested I stay with friends or family for a while, but I knew that wouldn't stop the relentless pursuit of my unseen tormentor. Desperate for answers, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reviewed the security footage from my cameras, hoping for a glimpse of the stalker's face. What I saw chilled me to the bone. The footage showed my apartment, empty and silent. But as I fast-forwarded through the hours, I noticed something. A shadowy figure, barely visible, lurking just beyond the reach of the camera's view. It was there in the hallway, in the living room, even in my bedroom as I slept. I couldn't see the stalker's face, but the way they moved, slow and deliberate, filled me with dread. They were always just out of sight, always watching. With the footage in hand, I returned to the police, hoping they could use it to finally apprehend my tormentor. But the officers' faces grew pale as they watched the video. They told me there was no one in the footage, no shadowy figure lurking in the corners of the frame. I knew what I had seen, and it wasn't a trick of the camera. It was as though the stalker existed in a realm just beyond our perception, always present but never fully seen. In the end, I had no choice but to leave that apartment and the city that had once held so much promise. I packed my bags and moved far away, hoping to escape the relentless pursuit of the unseen stalker. To this day, I don't know who or what was haunting me in that New York City apartment, but I can't escape the feeling that it's still out there, watching and waiting for the opportunity to strike again.
I had always heard that New York City was a place where dreams came true. But when I moved into a quaint apartment on the Upper East Side, I quickly realized it could also be a place where nightmares took root. The apartment was a charming relic, nestled in a historic building with creaking wooden floors and vintage charm. I thought I had struck gold with this affordable gem in such a prestigious neighborhood. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to understand why it had come at such a low price. It started with the strange, unsettling noises in the dead of night. At first, it was nothing more than an odd scratching sound, faint enough to be dismissed as a figment of my imagination. But soon, the scratching grew louder and more persistent, like sharp nails scraping against wood. Nights turned into a waking nightmare as the scratching evolved into sinister whispers that slithered through the room. It was as if unseen entities were carrying on their conversations in hushed tones, their words just beyond the grasp of comprehension. Fear clutched my heart as I struggled to make sense of the gibberish that filled my nights. Desperation led me to investigate the source of these eerie sounds. I combed through every corner of my apartment, searching for signs of pests or hidden speakers, but I found nothing. The walls seemed to hold their secrets tight. As the whispers continued to torment me, I noticed a peculiar pattern. The voices grew more distinct, taking on an eerie cadence that felt both ancient and unnatural. It was as though they were trying to communicate, to convey a message that transcended the realm of the living. One moonless night, driven by an unquenchable curiosity and an ever-present dread, I pressed my ear against the wall. The voices, once incomprehensible, now seemed to form words, whispered with a desperate urgency. "It's here, in the walls. Help us." The chilling plea sent shivers down my spine. The voices were trapped, and they were begging for release. I had stumbled upon something beyond the ordinary, something that defied reason. I turned to the only person I thought might be able to help, the building's elderly superintendent, Mr. Jacobs. His years of service and familiarity with the building's history made him the ideal candidate to shed light on the mystery that had taken hold of my life. When I shared my experiences with Mr. Jacobs, his face grew pale, and he told me a harrowing tale of a family that had once lived in my apartment. They had been practicing forbidden rituals, dabbling in dark arts that ultimately consumed them. The authorities had discovered their gruesome fate in the very walls of the apartment, their voices forever trapped in a supernatural limbo. As we delved deeper into the building's history, Mr. Jacobs and I learned that the malevolent forces within the apartment had a name: the Whispers of the Damned. For decades, they had tormented residents, their voices growing stronger with each new occupant. Determined to free the trapped souls and break the curse that bound them, Mr. Jacobs and I embarked on a perilous journey. Armed with knowledge passed down through generations of building superintendents, we gathered the tools and incantations necessary to confront the Whispers. One fateful night, we performed a ritual that reached into the spectral realm, offering the tormented souls a chance at redemption. As we chanted incantations and invoked ancient protections, the air grew heavy with an otherworldly presence. The apartment quaked as the Whispers made themselves known, their voices a chorus of anguish and despair. Yet they also held a glimmer of hope, a longing for release that transcended their torment. In a blinding burst of light, the Whispers dissipated, their cries echoing into nothingness. The apartment fell silent. The oppressive weight that had plagued me for so long lifted at last. With the curse broken, I finally found peace in my New York City apartment. The city that never slept had granted me a reprieve from a nightmare that had threatened to consume my sanity. As for Mr. Jacobs, he smiled, his eyes heavy with relief. He knew that our actions had not only set the tormented souls free, but had also ensured that the Whispers of the Damned would trouble this world no more. And so, life in the heart of New York City resumed its bustling rhythm, the apartment on the Upper East Side regaining its status as just another unassuming piece of history in a city teeming with secrets.